Yeah, I joined EO in 2020. Came right out of Catalyst. I won the fastest growth award out of Catalyst and joined in, I guess, March or April of 2020. So, I mean, one of those times where I think every entrepreneur in the world needed a Forum 21. So I was very fortunate at that time. But, I had tried 3 years in a row to get into Catalyst. 3 years in a row. The first 2 years, I didn't own my own business. So, of course, I had no chance of getting in, but that wasn't going to hold me back from applying. I wanted to make sure that by the time I was ready, everybody at least was familiar with my name because they had to reject me so much. But it's been amazing. I mean, the last 5 years of being in EO have been pretty incredible.
Welcome to The Decision from Nashville EO, where you will hear the rest of the story after tough decisions were made by entrepreneurs who faced adversity and lived to tell about it.
Welcome to The Decision, the podcast by and for EO Nashville, where we talk about all the fun that we have as entrepreneurs, starting, growing, scaling, and sometimes exiting businesses, and all the fun that happens in between. I am Eric Jackson, and with me, as always, Mr. Robert Hartline.
Good to be with you, Eric. Always
good to be with you.
I look forward to our podcast when we have this coming up, because we always have cool people to talk to, like today. But just like fun getting to know you more through these little conversations. It's fun.
It is. It's always a blast.
Yeah.
And I've got a really great question for our guest. First question for our guest today. With us today, Mr. Tyler Cauble. Welcome. And I think I had talked to you maybe one time before I saw you at EO Talks, and that kind of changed everything for me. And I know that you are part of the benevolent dictatorship known as Forum 21. Those are Michael Burcham's words, actually. I kind of put them in his mouth. Yeah. But tell us a little bit about where you've been and where you find yourself right now after your EO experience has begun.
Yeah, proud member of Forum 21.
It's either that or you're out, right?
That's right. And I've got quite a story around that, too, if you want to talk about that at some point as well. But yeah, I joined EO in 2020, came right out of Catalyst. I won the fastest growth award out of Catalyst and joined in, I guess, March or April of 2020. So, I mean, one of those times where I think every entrepreneur in the world needed a Forum 21. So I was very fortunate at that time. But, I had tried 3 years in a row to get into Catalyst. 3 years in a row. The first 2 years, I didn't own my own business. So, of course, I had no chance of getting in, but that wasn't going to hold me back from applying. I wanted to make sure that by the time I was ready, everybody at least was familiar with my name because they had to reject me so much. But it's been amazing. I mean, the last 5 years of being in EO have been pretty incredible. Just from a business perspective, I mean, I dropped out of college, right? I mean, I've completed my freshman year. I pretended to go for my sophomore year for a couple months. And then I immediately started working on startups. So I never got that formal business education. So having gone through Catalyst and being privy to Michael Burcham's teachings, and then getting to be in his forum and grow with that for the last 5 years has had a massive impact on my business, which it's really interesting to kind of think back on where I was in 2020. I was really focused on brokerage, trying to figure out this investment thing. And now, we just merged our property management company with a company out of Atlanta last week. I'm kind of growing the brokerage, but I'm not really. And I'm not really nearly as dependent on it as I used to be. And now we're focusing more on the investments and online education side of things, which is all stuff that, I've been dreaming about for 13 years since I first got into the business. So that's where we are.
Prior to 2020, where were you? What were you doing?
Yeah. So prior to 2020, I got started in commercial real estate back in 2013. So it was like right after I dropped out of college, moved back here, got my real estate license and started working in-house for a boutique development firm here in town, really handling all their leasing. So had a shopping center right down the street from you up here called the Glenbrook Shopping Center. So handled the leasing there. We had a mid-rise in Midtown. So about 6 stories of office that I was working on there. And then a couple 100,000 square feet of industrial out in Mount Juliet. And so I kind of cut my teeth on all sorts of different types of real estate. And by the time I left that firm too, to go start my own, we had about 1,000 townhomes, either under construction and permitting or in planning. They did some single family custom homes. So I really got this wide berth of experience in the real estate world. And so I knew when I went to start my own firm, I didn't want to pigeonhole myself into being the retail guy or the industrial guy, right? I really wanted to work on a variety of assets. So instead, because you still have to niche down somehow, you still can't be a generalist, I chose geography, which was not very common for commercial real estate in Nashville at that time. This was 2018, February of 2018 when I launched the Cauble Group. And so I just made sure that everybody knew I was the East Nashville guy. And so every time somebody had a client mention East Nashville or the topic of East Nashville came up, I was the first person they called, which really, really helped my business. I mean, I tripled year over year when I left that firm and started focusing on East Nashville because of that. Wrote a book on how to lease commercial real estate in February of 2018 when I left and started the company. Then started my property management company later that year.
What's the case for commercial real estate versus residential? What's the difference in the type of investing that occurs?
So I'm writing a book right now that's going to be titled, I Won't Evict Single Moms and Other Musings on Commercial Real Estate.
That answered the question.
Because
that makes the most sense.
I wanted it to be a very jarring title, but it's one of those titles that anybody who has ever bought residential real estate can relate to.
Yeah.
Because what that sentence sums up is no matter how good of a person you are, no matter how good of a landlord you are, at some point, you're probably going to come across a tenant, single mom, couple kids, who can't make her rent payments. Are you going to make a bad business decision or are you going to make a bad moral decision?
Right.
And so that's one of the biggest reasons. The other reasons, I mean, commercial real estate is far more scalable. It's way easier to get better debt terms, raise capital for these deals. You know, why buy one house for $500,000 when we could go buy a shopping center for $5 million?
Yeah.
Right? It's so much easier. You can treat it like a business. And there's many different ways that we can make money off of these as well, just from the brokerage, property management, asset management levels. Not to mention tax benefits. Of course, you get some of that in residential. You get some additional advantages in commercial real estate. But to me, it's more of we get to work with entrepreneurs in a different capacity. So I've always kind of worked with small businesses. I don't want to deal with where people lay their heads at night.
Yeah.
You get all sorts of complaints and problems, but getting to give a startup their first office or helping some, which we did with Lauren Reed, by the way.
Yeah.
I helped her lease her first office space when she founded Reed PR.
This is on West End?
Right.
Yeah. I remember that office space. Yeah.
That was in our building. That was the building that I was leasing.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense. We had coffee there one time, our first time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember the name.
That's funny. We were probably passing in the elevator.
Yeah. Is the owner of that building still alive?
So one of the owners passed away. The other owners, JD Etherly.
JD, yeah. He was my landlord across the street. I owned a Sprint store across the street.
Oh, yeah.
And he told me crazy stories about back in the 60s, and that used to be a auto repair shop or whatever. And he was trying to they put a stone structure in the middle of the road on West End, and it was really a pain in the ass for traffic. And he asked his Metro Council members, "Hey, can you move this?" And nothing happens. Middle of the night, he goes up with a shovel and beats the shit out of it and destroys it. And a week later, the council member comes over and goes, "Hey, I solved that problem with you with his hand out."
That doesn't surprise me one bit.
Yeah. And him telling that story was just kind of, I mean, that's how politics work in I don't know if it happens still, but probably not.
At every level.
Yeah,
probably
does.
JD was a character though. I mean, that same building, it was either that one or one of the other ones next to it. they drilled underground and tapped into somebody else's power across the street so that they didn't have to pay for their own power.
That sounds
He was a cowboy, man.
Wow.
He also, the F&M Bank, which used to be Metropolitan Bank, right there.
Yeah.
JD owned that 5 times because he bought it, sold it, seller financed it. And as he would say, those sorry sons of bitches would default on their note. He'd foreclose, sell it again, carry the seller note. They would default. I mean, seriously, 5 times that one building.
Wow.
I can't imagine how much money
Like
he
the
made
buy
on that
here,
one
pay
property.
here
You probably learned
model.
You probably learned a lot from him.
It was phenomenal.
Yeah. It's probably our mentors that help us with those things. And now, how do you choose a tenant for a property? How do you make, because that seems like a science behind it.
It's a loaded question, right? It can be tough. I mean, that's one of the questions that I get a lot from investors that are looking to transition from residential to commercial real estate investing, right? Is how do you find tenants? Because residential seems so easy. You put it on apartments.com or you put it on Zillow or, whatever, and Craigslist, and it works, right? People are always looking for space every month. But commercial can sit vacant. And so, really it depends on the zoning. It depends on the property. It depends on the size, depends on the build out. There's so many other factors that go into how do you pick the right tenant. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's all about how do their financials look, right? So startups can be tough because you're kind of taking a longer term chance as a landlord on a startup. There are some other ways you can get around that: higher security deposit, higher rent, or delivery as is, no build out, right? But you'll also, want to look for what is the right mix for this property. I was reading last night about this landlord that put a gym into one of his retail shopping centers, and it increased the traffic to that shopping center by 70%. So making a move like that for all of your other tenants is going to increase everybody's business and be good for everybody. So you really do want to be intentional about that mix. That's why if you go to a Target shopping center, you'll see almost the same types of business next to it at every single location because they understand the type of demographic that Target's going to draw in. So they want to ride, as Michael likes to say, they want to be the flea on that dog.
That's right.
Right. So for you, you have this vision. You're doing the brokerage and you're doing commercial investing, and then YouTube shows up. Where does that show up?
The YouTube thing is wild, to be honest with you. I mean, that's not something that I could have ever planned. So here's the deal. When I got started in commercial real estate, 2013, right? Totally different world compared to today, especially on YouTube. But commercial real estate kind of has this thing where it's like stuck in the 1980s.
Yeah. So
like in some ways over the past few years, it's really advanced a lot, but in other ways, it's still kind of that good old boy, like the average broker's 60 something years old, old white guy. Right. And so it was really frustrating getting started because my boss was developing real estate. He didn't want to sit there and teach me how to lease a 1,200 square foot retail unit. So his idea of training was go knock on doors until you find somebody that says they're wanting to lease something, and then I'll work you through it. All right. So I bought every book that I could on Amazon. I think there were like 4 or 5. I listened to every podcast that I could. There were 2, and one of them had stopped running the year before. Nothing on YouTube. And so I always kind of thought to myself, okay, as soon as I actually learn enough about this business, I'm going to teach other people how to do it. The problem with that sentiment is that as soon as you know enough about a business, you're really busy doing the business, right? And so I was just so busy working with clients. I was out of the office 99% of the time. Like I had an office for my team, and I was out doing all the networking events and bringing in business and doing site tours. I mean, I was probably putting, 25, 30,000 miles a year on my car. And 2020 happened. I went from 99% of my time out of the office to 100% in the office by myself. And so for the first 2 weeks, every day, all day, prospecting on LinkedIn, connecting with all these private equity firms. Hey, I'm in Nashville. What do you want to buy? And thinking, surely this will drum up some sort of business. Hey, we'd love to talk to you. We're not buying right now. we're going to see how things shake out for the next 60 to 90 days. All right. Well, there's no business there.
Not good for business.
Not good for business. Yeah. And so I kind of looked at it and I said, all right, well, I need to be productive. So I started writing. I started writing more for my blog. I would write 2 to 3 articles a day just because I felt like I have nothing else to do. This might give me good SEO. And today, it was actually one of the greatest things I could have ever done, because that alone has given us some of the strongest SEO for a boutique brokerage in the world, which is really, really interesting. I think there's only one other firm in the United States that we compete with, and they're out of Austin, Texas, of course.
Yeah.
So then I started watching a lot of YouTube videos, trying to figure out, okay, how can I start a YouTube channel? Because it's really, really intimidating getting in front of a camera if you've never gotten in front of a camera before, right?
We know, right?
Yeah, exactly. You got all these cameras around, and you've probably had people in here before that have never been on camera, and they like clam up
Right.
and lock up. And it's funny how we do that, because there's no real reason to. But I kept thinking, like, how can I overcome that fear? I don't know what I'm going to say if I get on camera. And then somebody on YouTube in one of their videos just said, if you write blog posts, they're already in your voice. That's a script for a video. It's like, oh, well, I've got a whole bunch of those. I could do that. And so I bought the camera equipment off of Amazon, had it delivered, that week, set everything up, hired a video editor, and we went to town. And so we started producing a video a week. And then I started live streaming on top of that. And now we're at over 650 videos on the YouTube channel.
Wow. And it was instant success, right?
Yeah. Overnight, before I even posted the first video, we had 10,000 followers. Yeah. No, it was horrific. What I tell everybody is, don't look at the analytics. It's the same as a podcast, right? Don't look at the analytics until you've done 1 year's worth of episodes. And that's ideally 1 a week, every week. Yeah. Right. So 52. And fortunately, I took that advice that somebody else who had a podcast gave to me. And it was very slow. But every now and then, whenever I would start to get discouraged, somebody would comment on a video and be like, this is exactly what I needed. I've never seen this anywhere else. I'd be like, okay, cool. We helped one person. That's fine. And after about a year is when it really started growing. We hit 10,000 followers in our first year, got the channel monetized. And that was a cool milestone. Like, you don't make any money at all off of YouTube. I mean, it's still to this day, we get, anywhere from 90 to 150,000 views a month, and I'll make $1,200, right? It cost me $2,500 a video to put out. We put out 4 a month. But just having that, like, that little accolade of, hey, you're doing something right, was pretty cool. So that's where it came from.
And when you think about your YouTube experience, what was a critical decision that you've had to make during that journey?
Yeah, a critical decision I had to make. I mean, the first one was just to do it. I think that so many people love the idea of starting a podcast, of starting a YouTube channel, of starting their own business, and never do it. And I think that is the first critical decision, is you've got to actually get out there and just do it. I think the second critical decision was, I'm not going to learn a new skill set while I'm learning a new skill set, right? So what I mean by that is getting up there and being the creator and the presenter is already new. I'm trying to focus on how can I get 1% better on camera every single time we record something. I didn't want to also have to figure out how to edit videos. Yeah. I mean, that would have just taken forever. So I'm very fortunate that right off the bat, I found a great video editor that got us off the ground, and I didn't have to worry about that one bit. It was all about how do we create the best content possible. So.
And when you're creating the content, when did you switch over to this information piece as part of a business?
So I kind of, like, when I first started the YouTube channel, I saw it as like, maybe somebody out there will watch one of these videos and hear me talk about how I'm in Nashville and call me to buy commercial real estate here. And that has happened quite a bit over the years, but that's kind of naive, to think that that was what was going to happen, because I wasn't talking about Nashville, and I wasn't talking about Nashville commercial real estate. It was more general commercial real estate stuff. And so, I mean, there wasn't kind of this component to it yet. Like, I didn't know what I was doing when I first started. I didn't know how it was going to integrate with my business at all. But then I started having people reach out that were saying, hey, we want some more coaching, or, hey, do you have one-on-one consulting? Would you consult on this project that we're doing? Hey, this is awesome. I've watched all of your videos. Do you have a course? I need something that's going to that's structured, that goes through all of this. So I was like, oh, I never thought about that. Maybe I should actually have something that people can pay me for on this channel instead of me just spending all the money myself. It's like starting a business. It's at first, if you've got like a little widget you just start making them and giving them out to people. You don't think about it as maybe a money thing. And then somebody asks, can I give you money for this? And it the light bulb went off in my head. So that's when we released the course. But it all started off with one-on-one consulting. I mean, I was charging $250. I think at first it was like $200 for 30 minutes. And now it's $500. It's really interesting to kind of see how that changes. But what I ended up doing once we started seeing the success from that is I said, okay, this is interesting. We're going to divert 100% of our marketing budget for the brokerage into the YouTube channel. And so that's what we ended up doing.
So it was your marketing funnel.
It was our marketing.
Yeah.
It was top of funnel.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And did you find that, because, you've navigated this journey while you've kind of involved yourself in a bit of EO. So you saw Catalyst, you got some coaching, you saw how the value of masterminding works. And that probably had an influence on how you looked at how you navigated a mastermind, right?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I've been involved in masterminds over the years. I was in one back in 2017 that was super influential on me. And EO is a mastermind, but in a slightly different way from what I think most people think of other masterminds, in a better way, in my opinion. And so I took a lot of what I had learned at those other masterminds and other events that I had attended, even if they were like one-off, like a 2-day weekend event, right? Whatever. And kind of combined that with what I liked out of EO. And that's how we created the mastermind. And so we've got accountability pods, right? That's kind of your forum, right? I have the inner circle, which is, it's capped at 20 members a year. Well, we get together with them every year to do basically a forum retreat, right? So they all just came to Nashville last week. Michael led us through a 3-year strategy session for everybody in the room, right? Really, really interesting opportunities. And so, not just thinking about how do we improve your real estate skills, but how do we treat real estate like a business? And so I take a lot of the principles and a lot of the way that EO functions, because it works really well, and apply that to the mastermind there. And the nice thing about that, like, we could all do that in all of our industries. EO has figured it out really well. That's why they're as global as they are. So why not take this and do the same thing for 1,000 people in manufacturing, right? Or 1,000 people in restaurants. I just happen to be in commercial real estate, so that's what I did.
How has doing this made you better at commercial real estate?
Oh, I've been really reflecting on that for the past couple of weeks, because I think that's interesting. So far this year, we've reviewed close to 100 deals, like looked at, analyzed, and underwritten 100 deals. And that's not including what I'm doing in my business. So just in the mastermind alone, I've been involved in underwriting 100 deals in not quite 100 different markets, but maybe 50 different markets.
Like 40. One every other day, essentially.
Practically.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's really interesting to learn commercial real estate on that level, because I've gotten really, really good at understanding how to get a grasp on a market in 5 minutes so that we can at least get a 90% certainty on a deal, right? So how do we understand the market? How do we understand this property within the market compared to its comps? And how do we underwrite this property?
And doing that in 50 different cities has got to be insanely difficult, but you figured out how to do that quickly.
It's crazy. So right now, after I leave here, I'm going back to my studio and I'm live streaming for 45 minutes. We're doing a challenge this month called 30 Deals in 30 Days, where I'm having anybody that joined the challenge can send me a deal or send me a city or send me an asset type. And I'm going live on YouTube and I'm showing everybody how I do it.
Do you put a wizard hat on while you're doing this?
Yeah, that's right.
That's got to be a challenge. Wild. Yeah.
It's fun. It's so fun. I mean, the thing that I have to tell everybody is like, look, this is 90% of the way there, right? I don't have the leases. Right. I don't have a construction budget. This is all based on estimates from my previous experience. But hey, 90% certainty in 45 minutes is pretty damn good.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of fun.
Tell me about a deal that was a struggle for you. Because I know everyone that I've talked to that has had to navigate some kind of, there's always one deal that just didn't go like you had planned.
Yeah, there was definitely one deal. I mean, there's multiple deals, right? I mean, I think if you're going to be in any sort of industry long enough, 1 out of 10 is probably going to mess, right? No matter how much time, effort, energy you put into it. I mean, my first deal, I'm still very proud of it. I got my investors an 8% return. That was it. So, I mean, a miss in terms of, we really wanted to make everybody a lot of money, but an 8% return over that time period, not bad, especially considering one of my partners, which, is kind of wild looking back on, was undergoing federal investigation because he decided to steal like over $10 million from his investors.
That's bad. Yeah.
Kind of wild.
Yeah.
So I got some really good advice from another real estate mentor who said, sell it as fast as you can and get out of it. So that's what we did. So I think, 8% return under those circumstances, probably not too bad. But I mean, I had a deal. It's kind of, I lost $1 million of investor capital on a deal. And that was really, really tough. That was back in 2022. And I trusted a mentor of mine and his partner too much, unfortunately. And they were both in EO, actually. Neither of them are now, which I think is interesting because it has nothing to do with this, but it makes sense that they would both have left. So I am really good at finding deals. Like that's my skill set. I can raise capital. I'm not a fan of raising capital. I can get debt. I'm not a fan of getting debt. So what I like to do is bring on strategic partners in every deal that we do. I'll go find some really good deals and then they come in, they raise the capital, or they come in, they bring the debt, whatever that is, right? And so I had assembled some land in East Nashville, $1,250,000 an acre for this land. And it was appraising for about $1.5 million to $2 million an acre. So it was 4.5 acres. So if you run the math on it, there's a pretty big spread of equity already built into that. So I took it out to my investors. We raised the first tranche of capital to take it down. And I negotiated seller financing on one of the pieces. So I brought in a couple of partners, the guys I mentioned, and we started working on this deal. Well, at one point, it was like January or February of 21 when we bought those. Closer towards the summer, we went from 3 acres to 4.5 acres. I had added more to it. And so the scale of the project ballooned. It went from like 50,000 square feet total to, several 100,000 square feet. And we looked at it and we said, hey, we should probably buy our investors out because what this has become now is like a 7-year timeline or a 10-year timeline as opposed to a 5. And so I said, they said, we'll get you the paperwork to go buy your investors out. Meanwhile, they went and bought the seller note from the seller, which I knew about. And I thought at the time was a good decision because it took out the wild card of having a third party in it. My partners own the debt. We've got the equity in the deal. We're golden here. Well, they ended up sending the paperwork for me to buy out the investors. It was a deed in lieu of foreclosure instead. And so I called them up and I was like, guys, we could just have a regular buyout. All the investors have agreed to this. And they said, well, we don't feel comfortable with our liability for buying these investors out if they see how much more money we're going to make on this deal. And I was like, I've disclosed that to them. They don't care. They don't want to be in the project for that long and also get diluted and deal with how much more capital's got to be raised. I'm putting them in another deal. We're just going to do a regular buyout. And they said, no, we're not going to do that. So, I'm sitting there. I'm like, okay, well, we'll figure something out. This isn't going to be that big of a deal. They had told me when they bought the debt in person, verbally, don't worry about making payments on the debt. We'll true it up when we get our construction loan. Again, that makes sense. It's land that's sitting there. These are my partners. I never got any notices in the mail of default on the loan. Never got any notice of even where to send payments or what my payments should be, right? Which is, they're required to do when you buy a note. Well, December 21st came and they sent me a foreclosure notice. They had put the note in default. And so I said, okay, well, I guess we're doing this. 4 days before Christmas. I went out and you lost 10 days, right? Like nobody's doing anything over Christmas. Nobody's doing anything over New Year's. Doesn't matter how great the deal is. So lost 10 days. And I've got 20 days left. I busted my ass and went out and raised over $3 million in 20 days, which I had never done before at that time. Had the money sitting in the bank account at the title company. And the title company wouldn't issue title. I already owned the parcel. It was me paying off me. And they wouldn't issue a title policy on it. So I'll never forget, I was sitting in my hotel room in Charlotte because I had taken my brand new girlfriend out to Charlotte for the weekend. And I get the call from my attorney. He's like, it just went to the courthouse steps and they foreclosed.
Oh.
And so, there I am sitting there going, we had the cash. We did everything right. These guys did everything wrong and they won. And, I had to collect myself, kind of ruined the Charlotte trip a little bit, right? Because it was literally right there. We just lost $1 million of not my money. And so, I kind of pouted, did the whole thing. I think I earned that
Sure.
for the weekend.
Yeah.
And then when I got back to work. And, I legally in the structure that we had set up, I didn't do anything wrong. We did everything that we could. The investors were big boys and girls. They, had to recognize that they could have lost that capital. But the decision that I had to make was at the time, this was 3 years ago. I'm 30 years old. Do I want this to be my legacy as a real estate investor for the next 60 years while I'm still trying to do more deals? I went out, put another deal together, and within 2 months, flipped that and made $1 million. Fastest I've ever made $1 million. And then turned around and wrote that check to the investor. I had to take a screenshot of my bank account because it was the first time I'd ever had $1 million in my bank account. But of course, the next day, wrote a check.
Like even Steven.
Yeah.
But it's just a giant lesson.
Yeah. Wrote a check to my investors, paid them back. They all reinvested that capital into my next project.
Oh, wow.
That's an incredible mindset shift that you had there, and taking chicken shit and turning it into chicken, I guess. Maybe that's not the right description of it, but you were given a terrible situation and turned it into something and into a positive.
Was ultimately the blame the title company? Or is there blame?
I think there's multiple spots where it was just this perfect storm of things going wrong. My attorney at the time was going through a divorce. Mm. And he was just like, we were halfway through dealing with this. And he goes, I can't deal with this anymore. You've got to hire a different law firm. That one decision, I think, cascaded into what happened.
Yeah.
Because having to bring on a new attorney who didn't know anything about what was actually going on here, who then urged us to use a different title company instead of the title company I had originally closed through, where there shouldn't have been a problem if we had done that, caused that.
Yeah.
But of course, I had two guys that saw, hey, if we screw Tyler and his investors over, we can make a quick $2.5 million. And they did.
And, but at the end of the day, this is kind of a lesson too. Like anybody that's navigating divorce, they're just a disaster.
Yeah.
And like even if they work for you or people that you are subbing out and need some help or as an outside counsel, I mean, it really messes up. They're just, I know, or at least from my experience when I was, my divorce I was a disaster for a year.
It's never a good time.
I didn't know it at the time that's what he was going through.
Yeah.
And so I just was livid because I'm like, man, how do you do this?
Yeah.
He and I have had a conversation about it since. Like we were yelling at each other on the phone. And I was like, I just want you to know that this is my side of the story.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, we're like, all right, let's go grab a beer and catch up.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he was going through some stuff. I get it. But he, like the way that he remembered it was he handed me off to another law firm that was fully capable of handling this. So I was like, that's like when you're in the middle of going through foreclosure like that.
Won't be making that mistake again.
No, I only close through one title company now. Everything goes through them. I don't care.
Yeah.
I won't negotiate them.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. What would say is another big pivotal decision that you've had to navigate through all of this?
What's funny is it like there's so many stories around losing money. But I think one that probably relates more to the listeners of the podcast is we're not bodybuilders. You don't have to be perfect all around. And in fact, I would argue as entrepreneurs, you should do the exact opposite. You should only do the one thing that you are best at.
Yep.
And, being in a forum that is hyper intense on self-reflection and planning really helped me come to realize I am a shitty manager. And no matter how much work I put into that, it's not getting better. It's not going to happen. That's not what I want to do. On the culture index, my chart looks like a drastic Z because I am super independent. I want to work by myself. I'm a philosopher. I don't know if you guys do the culture index at all. I don't want to manage people. I want to work by myself. I've built a team because I had to. And I feel like there's probably a lot of entrepreneurs out there that are like that. And so I think the biggest decision that I made is realizing and recognizing I'm not a manager.
Yep.
And I'm also not good at hiring. So those are two, really tough things to deal with because I can't hire the person that should then be managing. But because of that, I have strategically just built my business in a different way to where I utilize a lot of contractors, which is very easy to manage somebody to a contract, for me at least. And also, like I said, I merged my property management company with another group out of Atlanta. Well, they have the operations so down. I get to go do the one thing that I'm good at on property management, which is business development.
Finding deals. That's your magic.
Finding deals.
Yeah.
The phrase I've used before is, Peyton Manning and Tom Brady were really great quarterbacks. How much time do you think they spent tackling in practice?
Right.
0. Why would they?
Yeah. Or kicking a field goal.
Right.
There's no point.
Yep. Let somebody else do that. The stupid kicker do that.
It'd be a waste of talent.
Right.
Yeah.
Something that, we just interviewed Michael Burchin, and he's your moderator, and the fact that he kind of, it sounds like he has a sense of accountability to the numbers and looking at where are we growing, what's working, what's not working. And I see that a lot of forums, in fact, my forum don't do that, to actually see a scorecard where all the members of the forum seeing that growth is probably pretty pivotal to growth that you saw. Would you agree?
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that I or my businesses would be where we are today if it wasn't for that approach to running a business, right? I mean, I get nervous on days where we have forum and I haven't had 5 minutes to prepare, right? Because you don't want to be in our group. You don't want to be the person that shows up unprepared.
Because he'll know, right?
Everybody will.
Everybody will. Yeah.
Which, it's disrespectful of everybody's time.
Sure.
And we are very intense about that.
Yep.
If you show up 1 minute late, what the hell?
Yeah.
We're all here.
Yeah.
We're equally as busy. Right. So, there's a lot of accountability that goes into that. And I think if you want to grow a business, you have to take that approach. I love Forum because of that. We are all great friends, but we are all business partners first, right? Because we all have friends. We all got our best friends, right? We don't need to join a forum to get more friends.
Mm.
And I think that some people get that wrong.
Yeah.
That I've seen. For us, we became great friends because we were all on the same page about intensely running our businesses and holding each other accountable.
Mm.
And we'll say that. It's like, great, how can I hold you accountable to that?
Yeah.
You heard the story about a forum member who had to make a massive decision, thought that they were going to make it a year and a half later, and ended up making it a few weeks after saying it because everybody in that room said, all right, we're going to hold you accountable. When are you making that decision? There have been multiple instances in our forum where people have made big decisions just like that within 30 days after having a meeting.
That really is setting in motion in my mind, like having those kind of intentional conversations. That is permission. Say, listen, are you okay if I hold you accountable? Because I want to see you successful, because I would want you to do that to me.
Right. Because
I like when you push me, it's more different than if you're working out and you're like, you got one more rep in you, just like push, I thrive on that. And I think a vast majority of, and I don't know if I can't say that would be for a female entrepreneur, but maybe so. I don't know. Would it matter or?
Well, I had an EO member do that to me at EMP. I was telling him, well, I've quit drinking, but I'm still fat. And he said, I'm going to fix you. You're going to report to me what you did for a workout every day. And if you don't do it, I'm going to fly to Nashville and put my foot in your ass. Of course, I knew he wasn't going to do that, but I knew that, well, shit, this is exactly what I need. I need this accountability. Mm-hmm. And that's what turned my actions around. And that's the one thing I think that bad forums don't do. And I think we talked about that with Michael. It's just, that's what we're there for. Mm. You got to be willing to accept that as well. And if you're not, maybe forum's not for you.
We're all pretty good at self-motivation, right? We're entrepreneurs. Yeah. But even we need the push.
Yeah.
And I think, especially for me, like having that, I've got to report to 5 people
who are badasses,
who are all badasses.
Yeah.
In the next 29 days, what I did will kind of give you that. All right, well, let's sit down and figure this out. We got to do it.
Mm-hmm. What would be your one piece of advice for a new member in EO to get the best experience out of EO?
I think your forum is incredibly important. Really, really important. And so I think that you should take your time interviewing forums. And that doesn't mean to say like, hey, go and interview at the forums that are currently advertising that they have people available. Go to every event that you can, meet members, see who you click with, and have a conversation. Because the forum that I joined was not advertising that they were looking for another member. Right? I was just graduating out of Catalyst. And Michael and I got really close during Catalyst. Because one day, he told the whole room, hey, I'm going to be at this bar. It was Nate Bagby's bar, the Centennial, over in the Nations. Said, I'm going to be at this bar on Saturday at 1:00. Anybody that wants to can come and join me for a cocktail, and I'll be there for a couple hours. And of course, I'm sitting there in the room. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't miss out on this opportunity. Michael's, he's intense. And, when he's teaching, you can't be in the room with that guy and not be in awe of him.
Yeah.
And I showed up to the Centennial and I was the only one. So I got to spend 2 hours talking with Michael over bourbon. I mean, what a phenomenal opportunity. And so we got really close because of that. And so by the end of Catalyst, I texted him. I said, hey, you've mentioned before that the form is a really important thing for joining EO. Do you have any advice for me as I'm going about searching for a form? Kind of fishing a little bit. Right?
I see where you're going.
Yeah. Kind of fishing, but, kind of also like, I just need the advice. And he goes, why don't you just come and interview at ours? And so I did. I mean, can you imagine? I was coming out of Catalyst, interviewing at Michael's forum. Ooh, my heart was racing. But I guess I did okay.
Wow.
So form matters.
Yeah. Well, and showing up and asking for what you want.
Right.
Make all the difference in the world.
Which is really what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be selfish in a way.
Yeah.
Get what we want out of the experience. And
yeah.
Tyler, thank you so much for joining us.
Guys, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
This is great.
Yeah.
You've got a great setup here.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Thanks. If you are in Nashville, you're an entrepreneur and your business is doing more than $1 million in revenue, but you're looking for connection. You're looking for a place to go to help navigate the life of entrepreneurship, whether personal or business, doesn't matter. You can visit eonashville.com to learn more. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week.
Thanks for listening to the Decision Podcast by Nashville EO. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.